people are trying to tie this shooter to the groypers because, and this is a little obscure, he posed in a squat in an Adidas tracksuit for a Halloween costume. His mom posted that he was being a man in a meme.
Yeah,
People have
that's
seen
the meme.
pictures of Pepe the Frog associated with the alt-right.
Hey guys, so the legacy media or the left-wing media or whatever you want to call them, you know who I'm talking about, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, whatever, they cannot help themselves. So details are still emerging about the man who murdered Charlie Kirk, but it's obvious from the fact that he murdered Charlie Kirk that he doesn't like Kirk very much, and that he probably had some hostility towards Kirk as a public figure. Now, what did Kirk stand for? What was he known for? Well, he was known for his strong support for Donald Trump. He was known for his faith, for being a Christian, for being a believer in Jesus Christ. And he also received probably the most hatred for speaking his mind on two issues. And those issues were abortion and transgenderism. So at the very least, with zero information beyond what we know about Charlie Kirk and the fact that someone murdered him, you could probably err on the side of caution and say that it's likely that this guy is not a Republican. Now, it's not certain, but it's likely. And as details have come out about 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, the man who is accused of shooting Charlie Kirk, we've come to find out that he was deeply entrenched in some of the sickest, most disgusting left-wing ideology that is out there on the internet. Or at the very least, there is very good evidence pointing to that fact, and I'm going to show you that evidence. But first, I want to get into some of the wild sort of theories about what might have motivated the shooter that are being promoted on channels like CNN and MSNBC, and that are being adopted by the viewers and by people who just don't want to believe this guy who was alleged to have murdered Charlie was on the left and, you know, allegedly murdered him for that reason, because of his political beliefs. So stay with me here, because this is going to get a little bit convoluted, but the point is I want to show you, you know, just how out there CNN has become. And this is Abby Phillip, of course, to no one's surprise.
I have to ask you this because a lot of people are asking what this means. A lot of people are talking about this word groyper. What does that even mean? And could this man be one of them?
Yeah. All this stuff used to be so fringe, and now it's like at the center of politics, and it's a little bit difficult for me to believe.
It is a little wild.
But groypers are the fans of the far-right podcaster Nick Fuentes. He's been around for a very long time. He was at Charlottesville. He was at Jan 6. Fuentes has long had a feud with Charlie Kirk, or had. He would show at his events. His fans would show up at their events, and they would ask Kirk leading questions intended to trigger Kirk into moving further to the right, particularly on immigration and gay rights. So Fuentes has totally disavowed this violence. He made a very forceful statement against that last night. But people are trying to tie this shooter to the groypers because, and this is a little obscure, he posed in a squat in an Adidas tracksuit for a Halloween costume. His mom posted that he was being a man in a meme.
Yeah,
people have seen pictures of Pepe the Frog associated with the alt-right, dressed in that same tracksuit doing the squat. However, that meme itself is a reference to Eastern Europeans posing like that in Adidas tracksuits. So, like, again, like it's like grasping at.
Yeah, it's also mixed up. And
This is so incredible. It's so incredible that the word groyper is being spoken on cable news at 7:14 p.m. at night, and you have this guy reacting like, yes, tell me more about the groypers. But if you recognize this girl too, this is the woman who sat down for that hilarious interview with Tim Dillon, where she sounds like she is on lithium or something. I mean, she has sort of a similar affect here, although it's slightly more lively, but I really encourage you to check that out because it's hilarious. It's fantastic. Okay, in any case, if you're tracking here, what Abby Phillip is proposing is that perhaps this shooter, or, the accused shooter, Tyler Robinson, was part of this right-wing subculture that's actually further to the right than Charlie Kirk. And so somehow Abby Phillip has managed to come up with a theory that still sees the right wing as the problem. And I think that these people would love for that to be the case. They would love to say, oh, this is an instance of conservative violence, and this proves that we need to, crack down on freedom of speech for conservatives in the manner that we were policed for so many years on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all the other sites. And there's still suppression going on. X is pretty good now, but there's still plenty of suppression on other sites. But to her credit, the guest shuts down that theory pretty effectively. Now, Kash Patel appeared on Fox News, and he offered some real details on what might have motivated the alleged shooter.
And one more point on forensics. We were able to obtain in record time the text message chain between the suspect and his live-in partner, as well as other critical cellular information from our CAS team that analyzes cell phone data towers in the area to pinpoint the locations of the suspect and other individuals he was speaking with. This is critical information that the FBI processed and got to prosecutors so they can lawfully use it in a court of law. And our investigation, our interviews continue, but we've learned some shocking things when we spoke to his family and friends as well.
You want to share them? Those shocking things?
Sure. And my job as FBI director is not to speak to motive, is to speak to the facts. And that's what I'm going to do. His family has collectively told investigators that he subscribed to left-wing ideology, and even more so in these last couple of years. And he had a text message exchange, the suspect, with another individual, in which he claimed that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and he was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for. Those are factually accurate investigatory findings by the FBI that we've handed over to the local authorities and the federal authorities to make their prosecutorial decisions. But I believe in this instance of such public importance, the public has a right to know. And I've told you I'm committed to transparency, and that's what I'm doing here today.
Why didn't that...
Okay, so Kash is just laying out the facts, and we can draw our own conclusions. And I'm sure that prosecutors will create a narrative based around those facts. Now, let me add a few other details that have come out since Wednesday. So we know that there were inscriptions on the bullet casings, and these inscriptions included things like Bella Ciao, and that is an Italian anti-fascist song. They included references to really bizarre gay, furry memes. Actually, I don't want to repeat that one because it's so gross, but you've probably seen it. They included, I think one of them said, "Hey, fascist, catch." Another, "If you read this, you're gay, Lamau." So whether or not Robinson is convicted, the shooter was clearly Gen Z. No, but we also know that Robinson was living with his live-in boyfriend, who was a male to female transsexual, was attempting to transition into a woman, which, is impossible, but I probably don't need to tell you that. There was an interview with a neighbor who said that they were definitely a couple, that he saw these two guys holding hands, that he saw them kiss. And so that, along with what Kash Patel just said, I think is plenty of evidence to demonstrate that this guy, Tyler Robinson, was clearly very deep into left-wing ideology, into bizarre sexual stuff. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and call anything to do with furries or transsexuals bizarre. And obviously figuring out to what extent that motivated, the alleged shooting will be, again, the prosecutor's job. But I think we can connect certain dots ourselves, especially given the kind of rash of left-wing violence that we've seen in recent years. And not just left-wing violence like, let's say, the Tesla takedowns or, the recent school shooting at the Catholic school in Minneapolis. Not just acts of actual violence and property destruction, but just this attitude among leftists that you see all the time that is really indifferent towards death and suffering, and property destruction of people that they don't like. And this, of course, has been facilitated by years of rhetoric where they say, you know, somebody who is basically a moderate Republican from 1995 is a fascist and a Nazi, and we should punch and kill Nazis. So, you know, draw your own conclusions. That's the game that they've been playing. We're seeing it come to fruition, and it's a very dangerous thing, I think. But those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Give this video a like, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.